So today's video is a biggie for me. It's writing your chord progression down. If I have a student who's going wrong, 9 times out of 10 they don't know what chords they are working over. So here's the definition. Very easy, and most music is made up of a sequence of chords, an order of chords, one after the other. You can stay on one chord, I don't care, as long as you've written it down and you know what it is, that is absolutely fine. And here are some professional examples. So on the left, that's a typical piece of piano music, and you can see that just above where it says somewhere, there is the chord name G, and you get those notes from what's going on in the piano underneath, and the melodic note as well, which is also a G. Next chord along is an E minor 7. So you can see that in the right hand of the piano you've got a G, a D and a B with an E in the bass. That gives you an E minor 7. So professionals know exactly where you are all the time with what harmonies they're working over. On the right hand side is an example of a real book. Jazz musicians and commercial musicians will know what all of those chord symbols mean, so they can create an accompaniment or improvise over the top straight away. You'll get from me something like this. It's a table for F major, and I will expect you to be selecting chords, putting them into an order, into a chord progression, and making sure you've got a record of those, not just in your DAW but in your books as well, so that you can tell me exactly what's going on in bar 27, for example. To the big question then, how do you actually write this down? So you've got to separate it into 3 different jobs. Number 1 job is to know what roots are going in what order. Second job is to give it the right symbol, and then the third thing is just to make sure the timings are correct. So let's do 4 bars. So I'm going to draw in 4 bars for you, and we are going to do a really boring chord change, which is going to be the 4 chord song. So I'm going to do chord 1, which is F, so I write the root name down, and then we're going to go to chord 5, and then we're going to add a D for chord 6, and then we are going to add a B flat. Okay, now next thing we need to check is the symbols. Now on all the tables that you've got from me, you will notice that some of the numerals have capital letters and some of the numerals are lowercase. If it's a lowercase letter, it's a minor chord. The distance between its root and its third will be a step and a half step, or a tone and a semitone, or the other way around. For example, semitone, tone. This means that D needs to be D minor, so it needs to have a little M by it. If you're feeling flash, write the functions in as well. There we go. Surprisingly hard to talk and do this at the same time. Next, you need to make sure you're adding sevenths and stuff if you want to do that. So there is an easy way of working this out. If the 7th, if you're using them, is right next door to the root note, so if you played them at the same time on the piano, so for example held down an F and just held down the nearest E, if they're only a semitone apart, that's going to give you a major 7th. The symbol for major 7th is triangle. If you hold down the root note, for instance, let's do it here on the 5 chord, the dominant chord. If you hold down a C on the piano and the nearest B flat to it, you'll notice that they're a tone apart. There's one spare flappy note in the middle. This means that that is a dominant 7th, a minor 7th between C and B flat, between the root and the 7th. If that's the case, you add the number 7. And that would be the same for this one. See, if you held down a D on the piano and then held down the 7th that's nearest 7th to it, right next door, you'd notice those are a tone apart. So D minor 7. Okay, so write down your root notes, add the symbols if you need to. The one you definitely need to get right is the M for minor. If you can't do the sevenths, that's not essential because those are bonus notes. Last thing we need to talk about is how to do the timings. So most of you are going to be writing in 4/4, but say you were writing in 12/8, same rules would apply. 4 beats in the bar. And let's go for a 4-bar chord sequence. If you have one chord name in the bar, then that's a full 4 beats on that chord. If you have 2 chord names in that bar, so let's say we go to A minor now, followed by D minor, you would read that as 2 beats each. And if we were in 12/8, of course, we would dot those as well. Sometimes you might see it written out so there is a slightly different harmonic rhythm. I'll put a B flat in there, and sometimes it might be indicated that needs to happen on beat 4. It depends on the piece. But if you've got 2 chords per bar, I recommend you do 2 bars inside the bar lines. If you're working in 3/4 and you have 2 chords in your bar line, that would be 3 beats on that bar, and that would be 2 beats on the A minor and then 1 beat on the D minor. Right, for one of the hardest things that people get their heads around is that what bar numbers line up with the door. So say you've programmed in a really simple chord change like this. You've got a chord of F, C, D minor and B flat, and that starts on beat 1. This would be bar 2, and then this would be bar 3, and this would be bar 4. When it repeats, however, if it does repeat, this is going to be 5, this is going to be 6, this is going to be 7, and this is going to be bar 8. So I'm going to show you a simple way in Logic to try and make sure that you can keep track of where you are, so that when you're working out extra instrumentation or how to solve an issue with your melody, for example, you know exactly what chord you're working over. Don't know if you can hear the gentle strains of Daft Punk coming up from downstairs, but my wife does have good taste in music as well. So let's have a look at what this looks like in real life. I've programmed in the chord change, and hopefully you can see a photograph of it at the same time. Sounds like this. He said, "Come on, son." Repeats. Goes to the chorus. Repeating it elsewhere. Sounds absolutely fine. We could build up that and arrange that so it sounds really good. First thing I would like you to do is not use the loop function. What I would like you to do instead is use ALT or the option click to cut and paste. And the reason being that say you heard a mistake in one of these bars here, it'd be much easier to look at your chord change and go, right, the mistake is happening on the 3rd bar of the repeat. Far easier than sort of having to go in and work out what chord you're on. Let me demonstrate how this might work in real life. I've recorded this little melody to go over the top. Apologies about the piano sound, it's just one velocity at the moment, but you should spot there's some wrong notes in there. G is sort of right, it's not quite bang on, so I would want to tweak that a little bit. You know, there are worse notes to be having, but that's okay for the for today's purposes, fine. So that G is mostly happening over the last bar of the chord change. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I would check it against my notes, and I would see that it should be a B flat chord. B flat, the triad of B flat has B flat, D and F in it. So let's see what happens if I tweak that note So it's one of those instead. Done the wrong one. Here we go. So it's that note there. That's the one that's a problem. Make it an F. Right, so does that sound any better? Much better. Now that E is a honking great mistake. We can't tolerate that. So I need to work out what chord we're in. So that's happening in bar 10. I look at my chord change. There it is, bar 10. I look at my chorus chord change where I've written down, and I can see that it should be a D minor 7. D minor 7 involves the notes D, F, A and C. You can check that against your chord tables. I'll use the piano roll this time. So where's the wrong note? Where do we get to? Here we are, there's the culprit. Let's put an F in instead. What's that like? Better. So that's taken me just a couple of minutes, but it takes the guesswork out of things rather than getting frustrated, sort of randomly hitting away at the keys. So hopefully you can name your chords correctly with the right letter name and add a symbol if they are, if necessary. Hopefully you can write them down so that it takes in account of any harmonic rhythm, so 4 beats per note or 2 beats per note or 3 beats per note as necessary. And hopefully you guys can then refer back to your chord changes when you are having issues with doing your compositions yourself. Okay, next video from me, I have no clue what it'll be. I've got an idea for about 40 odd, so there will definitely be something. Practice your craft and the art will come. Like, subscribe and all the YouTubery, catchphrase stuff, and I will see you soon.